In 2024, China lost 21,000 kindergartens. That's an average of 59 preschools shutting down a day. And in 2025, another 21,000. In one area, Guangzhou, the birth rate in 2017 was 144,000 newborns, but in 2024, it went down to 64,000. Marriage registrations in 2024 were down 20.5%. In an interview, Dun Tao, chief physician of obstetrics at Shanghai First Maternity and Infant Hospital, shockingly revealed that in maternal and child health hospitals, the workload in some areas have decreased by 50 to 60%. Multiple Chinese media reports from provincial hospitals over the last 2 years have discussed obstetrics departments merging or closing because of declining births. Just months prior to that, in 2023, there was a talk of fewer searches on Chinese search engines for baby items, strollers, and more searches for cremation urns. There was even a company that started building pregnancy robots, though not sure where that project went. China officially started having a population decline in 2022. The official 1.41 billion is questioned after COVID-19 ravaged China. And in 2016, China officially started its two-child policy. In 2021, three-child policy. Clearly, China is having a population crisis, yet fast forward to 2026, nothing seems off or have drastically changed in China. Total retail sales numbers of consumer goods rose from 44 trillion yuan in 2021 to over 50 trillion yuan by 2025. So is China hiding their population decline? And if so, how? Welcome to Unclassified China. One winter day in December 2025, a few internet screenshots showed people complaining online about how there's period policing in China, messages from their local clinic or community offices tracking their monthly cycle. Talk about an invasion of privacy. Just a few months later, the 2025 year data for births and deaths was revealed. 7.92 million births in 2025, the lowest since 1949, the year that the People's Republic China was created. That's down 17% from 9.54 million of 2024, with a total fertility rate of about 0.98. And births accounted for only about 6% of the world's total. The two-child policy, which started again in 2016 because the government had predicted that the fertility rate would rebound to 2.1, reaching 1.73 by 2025 with 14.33 million births. And by 2050, the fertility rate will still be around 1.72 with 13 million births. And that goal seems to have gone through to the opposite end, back to the starting point. That's not all. Those born between 2020 and 2023 are now at the age of going to preschool. Yet from 2022 to 2025, kindergarten closures across China accelerated sharply. The country lost 5,600 kindergartens in 2022, 15,000 in 23, and more than 21,000 in 24, and another 21,000 in 25. In total, 63,000 kindergartens disappeared in 4 years. And that's not the end. 2026 actually marks the first year that there is going to be a drastic population drop from the post-COVID era, which means the real drop in kindergarten will start now. And this isn't guesswork. This is Chinese state broadcaster CCTV mapping it out on the timeline. Elementary enrollment peaked again in 2023. Same thing with middle schools. They peaked this year because of the 3-year gaps. And high school will peak in 2029, exactly 3 years after that. Higher education, 2032. It's a single wave moving up the school system through 3 years of the gap. Rural Heilongjiang has lost close to half of its kindergarten. Some townships now exactly have only one public kindergarten left within dozens of kilometers. Down in the south, in Kunming, 45 kindergartens were shut down in a single year, enrollment at a 6-year low. In the middle of China, Henan's Tangyin County, inspectors found 13 out of 64 schools already shut down. In Hunan's Taojiang County, there's a formal government plan to consolidate all 83 of its compulsory education schools by 2030. Even cities like Shanghai, they're not spared. Pudong, which is one of the top districts there, the Sanqiao Elementary School, a century-old institution, merged into a neighboring school last year because there simply weren't enough local kids left to fill it.
原来是别人求你，像我们幼儿园原来人家进来都很难，然后还打电话求求你了，给我安排个名额吧。那现在不是了，现在你得主动去招生。
This school director opened 12 kindergartens at the height of China's birth, and after COVID, she is heavily indebted to the point of switching to live streaming and selling alcohol to pay for her debt. She has reduced to just 4 schools now, and with pressure still coming from unpaid employees and creditors.
那银行卡什么时候好？
不知道10号开庭。
哎呀，实在是抱歉，
那么多时间了。
实在是抱歉，现在真的没有办法退，因为公司账户也被封了，我个人账户也是冻结的。
这个，我现在有好多优秀人转型的。
你记得我啊！
搞头发，
现在钱一定要那个，
哎呦，我们两个
怎么样？我们两个。
Similar stories were featured on Chinese video platforms, and the key slogan is what used to require backdoor favors in relationships to get into these schools are now asking for kids to enroll with exceptional offers, and still not finding any. Other kindergartens get converted, and they're used now as aging and retirement activity centers instead. From the birth issues come the economy. The northeast Heilongjiang, Jilin, Liaoning three-province area was once the country's industrial heartland, a region that used to pull in workers from across all of China. Now, it's one of the hardest hit places. Nearly 6,700 elementary schools have vanished there over the past decade, a closure rate of over 60%. People are moving to bigger towns, but also in general, there's just less people. Kids leave, and then the teachers lose their jobs, and entire communities structurally hollowed out from the inside. And that number lined up almost exactly with what we landed on in our previous video about China's real number of population, which likely sits somewhere around 900 million to a billion. This is because there is a population collapse, a population that's aging, dying slowly from the inside. And this is compounded by the fact that after the winter of 2022, which is when zero COVID policies ended, Chinese consumers did not surge to have more babies. They did the opposite. Both marriage rates and birth rates declined simultaneously. And here's the thing. All this data is official data, which, by the way, we can't really trust, and reality is often much worse. But just based on official data, we can already see so much. There's two absolute red lines in China. The first, saying China's not doing well, and the second is Taiwan, right? Recently, a professor of economics at one of China's top universities crossed that line. He gave a private lecture at a hotel, saying that China's current situation is like Japan's deflation period. It would take 20 to 30 years to recover. His social media was censored, and all of his content, online lectures, were deleted. So the question is, why won't China admit to it? Well, it started with a half-fake promise. Since reform and opening up began, China has quietly promised its people and promised the outside world through propaganda channels that it's growing, it's on an upward trend. And that promise continues today. So if you are telling people outside of China that China is not growing, that's a devastating effect to the entire image. So to point out China isn't economically getting better, or that it's having a declining population, or even geopolitically that it's not as strong as before, that is to effectively deny the entire Communist Party's premise. So they don't do it, and they censor everything about that. On November 5th, 2025, Dang Junwu, former deputy director of China's National Research Center on Aging, gave an interview stating that having children is not a family matter, it's actually a national strategy. And he said the biggest trouble with population aging isn't the number of elderly people, but it's actually the drop in young people.
Sorry, just a side note here. This guy's name is Dang Junwu. The last name literally translates to party, like meaning the Communist Party. And his first name, Junwu. Jun means handsome, talented, or outstanding, and Wu, it means martial, military, warlike, or martial arts. Honestly, Wu is like one of the favorites in terms of naming a boy in China during like the Mao's period, because it shows the CCP is all about the party struggles and all these things. So in other words, this guy's probably the most politically correct named guy in all of China.
And the top priority is to have the children that should be born. And so that's the core of the problem, which is laid out in one government official's own words, that the national movement to have more kids has failed, and the state's own numbers prove it, right? We've listed all that already. And this year, Alan Fone, an analyst at Rhodium Group, focused on China's population, published an article stating official Chinese population projections may be overly optimistic. And his estimate says that China's total population could fall by nearly 60 million between this year to 2035. And that's almost the entire population of France gone in under a decade. And the report shows the collapse is accelerating. For example, in 2024, newborns made up only 0.563% of the population. And over the past decade, women of childbearing age fell 13% to 213 million. And newborns dropped by more than half in that same window. So marriage and childbearing intentions are also falling because there's too much pressure in China, and there's too much focus on getting rich, and people are having less kids. Now, the average age of marriage is also up, which is 34 now, from, at the same time, we have marriage registrations down about 40% since 2018 to just 6.1 million couples. So you have unstable jobs, weak income expectations, you have an economy that doesn't have a lot of security. All of it is pushing fertility down further. And China's 3,600 yuan annual child subsidy, which started in 2025, that's not going to really help move the needle that much. And China's own 2035 growth target has already been cut from 4.8% down to 4.2%. And the most recent numbers back it up. In the second quarter of 2026, the GDP hit just over 4.3% year over year, and that's the slowest since Q4 of 2022. And below the government's own target of 4.5 to 5% too. And that target, by the way, is already China's least ambitious growth goal since 1991. Fixed asset investment for the first half of the year, down 5.7%, which is worse than the 4.1% drop just months earlier. Real estate investment, down 18%. That's the largest drop on record since 1992. Auto purchases, down more than 16%. So the question becomes, why hasn't people noticed? Well, for one, objectively speaking, a billion people is still a lot. And second, you're too far away, and they don't tell you. But also because population isn't the only thing that drives an economy. Factories, automation, workers becoming more productive, industries move up the value chain. And now you have this AI boom with the chip boom that was a few years ago. And that's why some argue that China's demographic crisis is exaggerated, which is not, by the way. Population peak in 2021, retail sales kept going up. Youth unemployment rate stayed high. And if workers are becoming scarce, shouldn't wages be soaring instead? It's a very fair question, actually, but the answer is quite simple. China doesn't have a labor shortage today. It has a job shortage. There's too many graduates, too fewer good jobs, and population decline works on sort of a different clock. It's a long-term thing. Today's missing babies become tomorrow's problem. And those two problems can coexist at the same time. You could have parents who are facing issues with not wanting a newborn because they simply can't afford it, but also you have a problem where the overall population is declining or shrinking. And so you're looking at something as saying that the sales numbers rose, while so did the number of household savings. It's highest it's ever been, actually, in China. These families who were once able to spend more money are getting more cautious. They're saving up. How do you explain that? And by 2026, which is the end of this year, retail sales, property investment, and consumer confidence are all going to be at its weakest. So the demographic drag is only beginning to show. And within the next 10 years, it's going to get worse. The clearest example is actually in housing. For example, local governments rely on land sales to survive. So when the property market weakened, Beijing stepped in to support new developments. But in Hangzhou, these people who wanted to buy houses, they were giving massive subsidies worth up to 100,000 yuan, just so that they're trying to encourage people to buy. Some cities even issued vouchers that could only be spent on newly built homes, not secondhand homes. Meanwhile, the people who own that home already are trying to sell the apartments at a fraction of what it used to be worth, or a fraction of what they bought it for. One homeowner cut more than 1 million yuan from his asking price. 8 months later, he still hasn't found a buyer. Meanwhile, the retired population keeps growing, China's working age population falling from more than 70% a decade ago to about 61%. Above all of this, right, the CCP is still pretending that things are okay. And that's really the story. If you really just dig a little bit deeper, you find that nothing is all right. But on paper, everything's all right. So that's how you hide a shrinking population. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed the content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with my numbers, or you have other alternative explanations? Love to hear them. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Please watch the full episode on David on China. China Insider has been demonetized, so we're moving all of our full episodes onto David on China. I hope you will subscribe. Just click the link in the description, and it will take you there.